Hey everybody, thanks for downloading or watching. I'm not quite sure what the phrase is, but how to make crested gecko diet. So in front of me I have every flavor of Pangea and I also have Repashy. We use all these flavors, we mix them up. We typically use 2 different flavors or 3 different flavors a week for all of our geckos. This right here is an actual treat. It's not used as a stable, but sometimes we'll mix it up with maybe the breeding formula or some of the other ones just to get the geckos' appetites up, or we use it as a treat if we want to hand feed the geckos while we're playing around with them. We use these feeding bowls like this. As you guys have seen, these ones are large ones, and this is the small one if you guys are wondering about the size. We use those in all of our geckos, and we fill up these food bottles weekly of the different flavors, and that way once we have the pre-made mix, we actually keep in the refrigerator so that it stays fresh on that. So we are a huge fan of Pangea. We actually sell it on the website at courtgeckos.com. You guys can actually get some of it. Our geckos really seem to love it. And as you guys can tell, if you guys have been searching, a lot of places talk about how to make the mix. And it doesn't seem like there's one right way. And that would be accurate. Every gecko seems to eat the mixes a little bit different than the others. The typical suggestion is 1 part mix to 2 parts water. And I believe that's the same for Repashy. If not, we seem to do that. Yep, it's 1 part to 2 parts water. So what that means is if you had a measuring scoop, you would scoop 1 part of the diet. And then you do 2 of those measuring scoops of water and put it in and blend it up. Some people will use these bottles, like these smaller ones that we use for treats or sampling stuff. We'll get it and shake it up to mix it up. I find that it kind of sticks to the sides. So we'll actually use it and blend it either in a big bottle like this with an actual stirring stick, or we'll use the small containers to blend it up. And so the consistency varies on a lot of these. A lot of these are banana based, so you'll get kind of a paste on that. Some people make it almost like a peanut butter consistency. Others will make it where it's a little bit liquid. When these sit out for a while after you've mixed them, they seem to kind of solidify a little bit. They get a little bit thicker for your geckos. They don't stay super watery. Now the fig mix here actually has no bananas, this one, and that one does stay a little bit watery, while the breeding formula is actually very chunky, so it doesn't look like any of the rest. Also, it seems like the insect one's a little bit more chunkier. But you know what next I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use these cups, and I'm going to make 2 different ways to do it. One I'm going to do by the recommended 1 part to 2 parts water, and the next I'm going to eyeball. We use both means to make this food, and depending if it's me or if it's Chris that's making the food, we might make it a little bit different. So I'm going to do both of them, and then we can see how it turns out. Alright, thank you. Okay, let's check this out. So I got my apricot. This is what we're going to be using this week. I'm going to make just 2 small examples in this cup. Here's just a cup of water. Here's just a small 1/8 teaspoon and then a stirring stick. So the cup on the right, I will actually do the recommended of 1 part mix to 2 parts water. The apricot one is a very sweet one that the geckos seem to like. It's not as chunky as you guys will see. There's 1 scoop. Actually, I'm going to do 2 scoops for this. 2. I try to make sure that the scoops are actually leveled off so they're getting about the same amount. There's my 2 scoops. We like using these small bags because we know, yeah, we go through them, but we're getting fresh bags each time. And these bags that you see are actually the 2-ounce bags. And because we use so many different flavors, that way we're not having to go through. So the one on the right, we use 2 scoops. So if it's 1 scoop or 1 part to 2 parts water, so that would be 1 scoop would be 2 parts water. So if they had 2 scoops, that would be 4 scoops of water. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is the recommended amount. And if you guys can see here, it kind of gets a little, it's sticky, kind of. The powder just sticks to it right away. So I'll use my little stirring stick here and stir this bad boy up. And again, this is the recommended amount of 1 to 2. So let's see how this comes out. As I'm stirring it, if you guys can see here, it is a very liquidy base. So it is pretty, it's easy to scoop around and try to get this stuff off the top here. Make sure that it's all in there. I'm going to try to stir up high because I just saw some of the formula on that. It's much more liquidy than if you're used to baby food. And I just say that because we have kids. This right here is much more liquidy than a commercially bought baby food. But as I mentioned before, when you let it sit, you guys will notice that it's going to get a little bit thicker on that one. I'm just going to squeeze this off. I forgot to put a napkin here, just so that there's no contamination. And then with this cup, I'm just going to try to actually just, I'm not really paying attention to how much water I'm scooping in there. I'm just going to eyeball it and see. Actually, I think I put in too much. The problem about eyeballing it, like I just said, is how I thought I put in too much water, is you get that. If you're looking for precise measurements, I wouldn't use this method. I don't mind adding more formula and gecko food into my stuff. So if it does become a little bit watery like this one is, I don't mind adding more. This one is actually what I would say is too liquidy. I should not have zipped this up, huh? So I'm going to add a little bit more. Let's try a little pinch. And now my fingers are just covered in this stuff. I shouldn't have used my scoop for the water. There we go. This is actually getting thicker. Okay, see, I'm making this one a little bit thicker than the actual sample. I tend to do that. I know that oftentimes I make mine thick and it actually gets thicker as it sits, like I said, and then I end up having to add water. So this one's here if you guys kind of want to see it. Let me see if it'll show you the consistency. It's probably hard to tell on the camera actually. But let's just see this one just from sitting here. Yeah, it's thickened up. It's now almost kind of the consistency of a real, not chunky applesauce actually. If that makes any sense. So this one 2-to-1 is actually thickened up now. You can see it doesn't run. I mean, it slowly drips if you move it around. So as I move it, you might see it, but it's not really dripping much. This is the one that I just made out of hand. You can tell that it's more in here because I measured wrong. I added too much water. And let's just see from it sitting here. So sitting here, it's still a little bit, my geckos would like this. Pardon my dirty fingers here, but my geckos would like this one, but it is a little bit liquidy. So they would still eat this, but a lot of times I notice that they like it a little bit thicker than this. So hopefully you can see kind of as it pools and drips. This one I would say is still a little bit too moist. So really, actually, on the comparison on this one, I actually prefer the 2-to-1. It actually made measuring a lot easier. That is the consistency I like. So as you guys can tell, there's not really a great way to do it. Maybe your geckos like a little bit more liquidy food, and this one would be fine. Or maybe they like a little bit more consistent, like an applesauce, and they'd like this one. Some of my geckos actually really like it thick, where it's more of like a milkshake. You might have heard that expression. But these things like a milkshake, at least to me, when I drink milkshakes, they're pretty thick. And some of my geckos really like it thick. Your geckos are going to like different stuff. I recommend, either mixing them in small bowls each night until you find a consistency that they like, such as this, or using your large bowl and just mixing one, feeding at a time. And once you know what your geckos like, then you can use, these kind of squirt bottles to last for the week, or the however long you want them to be for. If it's 2 days, a week, whatever that is. And this also makes filling up the food bowls really simple and easy as opposed to scooping them out if you make it in a big one. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions about how to mix this stuff, let me know, or how to keep it. You guys can keep bags in the refrigerator. They say they're good for a year. We typically leave them open and they're good for 6 months. They normally don't last 6 months. We use the 2-ounce bags because we go through different flavors so frequently. So we always are going through the different flavors with our stock. The only time that we typically use the same flavors is with our breeders, especially our females. We really will use this breeding formula a lot, and then the bug mixes, just to make sure they're getting that extra protein. And the breeding formula has some great calcium in there. If you guys are interested in Pangea, Check it out on our website, courtgeckos.com. We also have a lot of these feeding bowls and ledges on that for you guys for that. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Facebook and Instagram. Check us out at Court Geckos. I know it's spelled a little different, Corch, geckos.com. Thanks, guys. Enjoy.